Hello, my name's Kevin. I am the atypical cripple, and I'm here with Bizarro.
Bizarro Czar, the czar of the bizarre.
Yes, well, what does that say about me?
I don't know.
Must I be necessarily bizarre because I'm with Bizarro?
I mean, you might not be part of my bizarre. I don't know.
All right, well, let's get on to our topic.
Sounds good.
Or, as Philly DeFranco says, let's get into it.
Oh, gosh.
All right, I want to talk about meaning and how it can be hard to follow something that's meaningful. How would you, Bizarro, how would you define meaning?
Meaning, let's see. What is the chief end of man? To glorify God and enjoy Him forever.
Isn't that a little vague?
I mean, it can be fleshed out quite a bit.
Okay, let's flesh it out.
Okay. Go ahead.
Your turn. Tag, you're it. Okay, so let's say, what are some of the roles within the church that people derive meaning from? Because I think meaning is derivative of some sort of purposeful action.
Well, even just by bringing up the church, you're saying we derive meaning within the context of community.
Right, right. Well,
To a certain extent,
I mean,
it's part of it.
we are, well, for example, my vehicle, church bought it. They applied funds to it. It's meaningful to me because I get to go to and from church, and they also allow me to go to and from wherever I want to go, as long as I can provide the driver. But the state puts some restrictions on on where they're able to take me, and so that can be a bit of a restriction. For example, they're allowed to take me on medical visits, so doctor related stuff, or essential shopping, which is a hugely vague kind of
So
term.
when you say the state, would that basically mean your caretakers are restricted in that way?
Well, they're federally funded and locally managed, if you will.
Administrated? Okay.
Administrative. So I have a case manager, so he's involved. I have so many people involved in my life. Oh my God. And here's the other thing is that they don't really have a vested interest in me personally. They're just, does Kevin get a pressure sore? This triggers these protocols. It's about the most mechanical way of being cared for. And so it's kind of funny because people say I think in systems. But here's the thing: when you have so many different people, I've probably had 400 caregivers over the last 30 years.
Wow.
Right.
That's
Well, it's a very high turnover, and in that position, if you have 400 different people all doing various things in your life, it almost comes up to the point where their sense of meaning is, I gotta make a buck.
Yeah.
And they're here to just, what do I gotta do to get through the day? And that for me is a meaning void because it makes me feel like I'm just a cog in the wheel. You know, my disability is, the purpose of my disability is to provide a job for a caregiver. And that is very much how many caregivers look at my case. And so if, there's a need and they're providing it and without really a lot of, well, the standards are there, but they're vague. And it's like clean the house. Well, you're relying on somebody's sense of clean on a day they may be feeling good, they're going around cleaning things. On a day they feel like crap, who knows?
Yeah.
I've gotten in arguments over the toilet as the condition of my butt. Is that clean? I'm like, I don't feel clean. Well, okay, is there something coming off from the toilet paper? Yes, but I think you're clean enough. Oh, see, what you're dealing with here is instead of, it's a qualified statement, not that you are clean, that you are clean enough for the amount of effort I'm putting in. And when you have so many different people coming through and so many different actual standards, it can be hard to establish a standard that everyone's willing to live with, because what starts caregiver wars, which means that as one person is leaving, another person is coming in, and then they're checking all the stuff in the house to see whether the person that left did what the person that's here said to do.
Right.
And then they're voicing their displeasure with me, and I'm just like, and it's like, what do you want me to do? Shall I get up and clean for you? I mean, there's a reason why they're here. Because I cannot. And so when somebody gets upset with me over what somebody else does, and it's like, I told them, and telling someone is not enough. You have to show them, which is, I mean, it's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
And then to have somebody say, well, just tell them what to do. Wow, if I'd only thought of that. Wow. I mean, the amount of condescension in that is just, it's maddening.
Is there no quality control or feedback function that if caregiver is not doing their job sufficiently, they can?
Yeah, there's supervisors, and the supervisors come in with their clipboards and say, have they done? And they literally have a clipboard. And they go around and go, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. It's like, so now you're bringing in somebody else's subjective opinion, where unless something is really bad, it's not their house. It comes down to
so your feedback is only worth so much.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you start to hassle these people, they start saying comments like, well, if you're not satisfied, you can go somewhere else. Which in a capitalistic market, that would be awesome. But what you're dealing with here is a planned economy where if I wanted to start my own caregiver agency that was focused on standards and integrity, I'd have to stay in business without state money for 2 years. And then, so I'm like, well, why can't I hire for myself? But you can't get government money until you're 2 years into it, because they want to make sure that you're in it for the long haul. It's like,
Sheesh.
and so they want you to go through this process that beats the living hell out of you. It introduces you to how standards are done, and what Veritas showed just up here in Everett somewhere. I think it was Everett, was it?
I don't know which.
Well, it was an old folks home,
I didn't see that one. No.
and they were frauding the government because not the government. They were frauding their patients because they were charging for services not rendered.
Mm.
I can tell you right now, in this state, it's a lot worse.
Yeah.
And one of the things the state doesn't want to have is a little Eye of Sauron on it. And
A what?
Eye of Sauron, it's a Lord of the Rings reference.
Oh, Eye of Sauron. Yeah.
Yeah. Anytime.
I thought you were saying like a ISR.
Cancel that, please. Yeah, that was my. I don't want to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Anywho.
Yeah. So I it's just problematic, and it's hard to be able to go to places regularly that are not controlled by other people. That's why for church there's a driving a list of people that are willing to drive. Number one, caregivers are not allowed to take me to church.
Really?
Well, yeah,
It's not considered an essential.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, when you consider how
The state.
the lockdown works, I mean, for someone like me, the state's been calling balls and strikes all my life.
That's amazing that somebody's religion doesn't register as something that would be essential.
Well, they would look at it like there's a Foursquare church just down the road, and down the other way there's a Kingdom Hall. So they don't make allowance for nuance.
Yeah, maybe just go to a mosque. What's the difference?
Well, from an atheistic point of view, can you derive a difference? I mean, I once had.
If you apply 2 or 3 brain cells,
Well,
even an atheist can figure some things out.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing. You think Michael Shermer gives a shit where I go to church? I mean, if you're putting someone like Michael Shermer in charge, are your charges.
Who is Michael Shermer?
He's the guy that started Skeptic magazine.
Oh, okay.
So
Famous,
big atheist on stage with prominent Christians, throwing the atheist smackdowns and blah blah blah. He's kind of like Sam Harris territory.
Okay.
Oh, but yeah, I mean, there's no sense of nuance. I mean, it's like the IRS. The Jehovah's Witnesses and the Mormons are Christians.
It's like the New York governor, the new one. She's like saying, "Well, no religious leaders have said that the vaccine is, that there's any religious exemption." It's like, so you think that everyone's following these few supposed religious leaders you've consulted, and now you're an expert on all religion. It's like this is such an ignorant statement. It's astounding.
The ignorance is that the state wants to dictate to the church
what's an acceptable religious belief. Yeah.
Right.
So the state is a religious authority. They're stepping in as a religious authority.
Well, they've been a scientific authority, they're a financial authority, they're a benevolent authority.
Yeah, well, they've gotten way too big.
Right. and so what I'm trying to say is, one of the things I've been talking about with people is there a better way to take care of people with disabilities or not? I mean, from my point of view, I've been hounding people at church for like 20 years going, well, when Jesus says, remember the poor, we're not just talking about getting together and doing a gift drive to people that have nothing. I think we're talking about setting up, we're talking about setting up institutions.
Right. The church should be in. The church should be taking that role. Like the fact that we've abrogated that role to the state is criminal.
Well, how did that happen? It happened because, oh my gosh, you're willing to help?
Yeah. Well, if the state
Oh.
steps in that role, then maybe people think, oh well, I guess they're
Well,
taken care of because
this,
Social Security or this or that or whatever.
well, here's the other thing is that there have been private institutions that have been corrupted.
Right. They've taken all that state money.
Well, no. Now they're taking state money. Before that, it was all private and wealthy benefactors and stuff like that.
Mm.
So go back to the 1800s where it's like asylums. What was that one movie with Tommy Lee Jones where he plays this alcoholic guy and he's like and they're church members and they're like, oh, these women that have gone west are gone crazy. So we're going to send them back east to the asylum. And they got one real, oh, I'm a church lady. I'm going to go with you to the asylum, make sure these women are taken care of. And it's like Indian attacks and all sorts of stuff go awry. And in the end, it's like one of them makes it. I mean, life was hard back then. You didn't have mental health days and things of that nature.
Yeah.
I think we're getting off topic.
What was the topic again?
Meaning.
Oh, meaning.
But again, I mean, things like taking care of the disabled can be an incredibly meaningful thing, especially if there's appreciation on the other side.
Yeah.
And that seems to be it's like this. Life in search of meaning is like a back and forth.
So
And there's output and input. And if the input is not reciprocated or if there's nothing in return, we tend to get rather irritated and the system falls apart. Does that make sense?
I think so. On the topic of meaning,
Mm-hmm.
something that our culture says, and I'm kind of curious how this ties in to you personally.
Sure.
But something that our culture says is very important, and that something that we should derive a lot, if not all, of our meaning from is our career and our education, and this sort of thing, our job. And so for somebody in your position, my understanding is you at least went down that road to a certain extent. So what was that for you?
Well, for me, it was like this. When I was an undergrad at Central Washington University, I was very much an anomaly. So people look at you and they expect, oh, he's retarded. And it's like when I showed up to class, it was like the second day of class. I'm sitting there, I got my coat on, I got my book bag on my lap. My nose is, it's a cold day in Ellensburg. And I show up, and I happen to know a bunch of answers to the questions. It was Geography 101. And it was awesome. It's like, oh, what's the tilt of the Earth? 22.5. what's Polaris, the North. I just had astronomy the winter before, and so and the guy looks at me and goes, if I'm ever sick, this guy can take over the class. Now, what was really weird is that we're in a class full of freshmen. And I remember this, but again, there's a visual observation, there's an expectation. If I just exceed the expectation a little bit, oh, people are so happy.
How old
But
were
if I exceed the expectation by a lot, oh gosh, I'm kind of afraid of the guy because he actually knows quite a bit. That's what I observe, at least.
Yeah.
And so therefore, if you do something or say something that's like way out there, it's like, I'm going to use my ambulatory ability to go somewhere else. And that is something I never would have thought. Growing up with the disability, people would be so apt to do. It was something, what am I not getting here? I too talk smart.
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
I'm curious, how old were you when you went through college?
I was 18 when I got into college.
So just normal age, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, my dad was like, where are you going to go? You're going to go to the nursing home because you can't stay here.
It's kind of like if somebody younger than is supposed to,
Right.
goes through college. It's like, what are you doing here? Why? And then, if you're actually coming out and being smarter than the people of the normal age,
If I
it's
had,
like, hey, something's.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's intimidation or what. That's interesting. I didn't even notice. I'm sorry. I'm easily distracted. There's a cat.
No.
There's a cat on your bed. I just noticed
Yeah.
movement out of the corner of my eye. I'm like,
Oh,
there's
it's
a
fine.
cat. There's a cat there.
he shows up there now and then.
Sorry.
But
So you went through undergraduate, and
Mhm.
how far through your education did you go?
I mean, I went all the way up to graduate school, got my master's degree from the University of Hawaii.
Wow. Masters.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, when I hit the University of Hawaii, I mean, that was seriously another level up. That was definitely a level up. But the problem was, I didn't understand how much I was being supported at the school I was at. As a matter of fact, when I was at Eastern in Chidi, I went to the geography chair and said, hey, I'm interested in becoming a geographer. And he's like, oh, you want to go to this school? That's funny. All right, let me give you the skinny. You need to go to the other school. They got a better program and a better disability office. This place is a joke. You're like, answer I was not expecting. And so I transferred. And that was interesting. So I went from a school that was like within driving distance of my dad. Like if everything fell apart, he'd be like down there in like 2.5 hours. To now that jumped to like 6. And he's whispering in my ear, you better get this right. And it's like, yeah, better. And when I left, and when I got there, it was like this. I had this female caregiver that was like really cool. And really cute too, which really helped. But she was there. She was helping me out, and she comes in one day. She's like, "Hey, dude, I gotta quit." I'm like, "Why? What's going on? Are you okay?" "Oh yeah, I'm fine. Thanks for asking." But my my other client, she doesn't like you.
What?
Yeah. And it was like,
What does that have to do with anything?
well, it'll explain itself. I'm like, what happened? Oh, she got pretty pissed when she found out I was working for you. I'm like, why? Well, she told me I paid you to be my friend. Right. So,
So
caregivers.
she was paying better or what?
No, same state funded program, all that. But I mean, look, I'm not one of those people that. Did you ever watch the Squirmy and Grub stuff I showed you? Oh, okay.
No.
Basically, a guy that married.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
he married a woman that ended up caring for him.
Right.
Now, the way they set that up was that he started a blog. She fell for him with the blog, and like, okay, what do I got to do? And it fell in like that. Where if you start off with care, it doesn't go anywhere. At least it doesn't with me. So,
Right.
and there's hypergamous stuff going on and stuff like that. And I'm not angry about that. Thanks to Stefan Molyneux and people like Roosh V. I mean, look, that's just the system. But when I went to grad, but that wasn't something you could be educated on. You kind of got to go through it.
Life experience.
And feel, well, why doesn't she like me? Or, oh, it's a money thing, or it's a status thing, or it's one of those things that within Christendom, we're not supposed to work off of those instincts. On the other hand, as families get involved, it's like, do you really want your daughter to marry a guy like me? So that can be a problem. And that has been a problem for me. And
well, it just depends on how good the life insurance policy is.
Right. And that's
I
not a long-lasting marriage. That's basically. Would that be a form of predation?
It could be considered, yes.
Yeah, kill you for the money. Okay. Well, that's something
I don't know why his health just dropped off all of a sudden.
I don't know. He just wasn't drinking water for 3 days.
Strange. He just
Right.
Yeah.
Well, but anyway, while I was at Central, there were a couple of professors that were there like, wow, this guy really knows his stuff. And
this was at undergrad?
Yeah, and we had the you should go to grad school conversation. And at this point in time, it was like in the dorms, there was a program called Guess the Homo. Yeah, and I had a conversation. There was gay Kevin and wheelchair Kevin. Guess who I was? And anyway, gay Kevin was just hounding on some guy, telling him, "Why are you addicted to women?"
Oh my God.
And I'm like, and so this Marine comes walking by. He's just in a towel, totally nude from the waist up. He turns around and goes, "Kevin, why are you attracted to a-holes?" And Kevin gets up and runs upstairs it's like, yeah, that was that was where I lived. And
I never had the dorm experience.
oh, it was crazy.
Sounds
but
like I didn't miss out on too much.
I had the best time. I had this friend named Phil. And Phil was a good guy, but yeah, he was a good guy for the most part. But anyway, he was sitting in my dorm and we were drinking, and he's like, how do you drink this whiskey stuff? I'm like, oh, okay, I'll be your Huckleberry. And so he starts. So I show him, okay, dude, what you do is you exhale. You inhale, take the shot, exhale, take the chaser. Oh, it worked out well. 8 shots later, he's going up and down the dorm, screaming, Pepsi, man. Well, he's like, I need a cape, I need a cigarette, I need a helmet. And I'm like, okay, we're doing this. And he had his helmet of, it was like a half rack of Pepsi, the box. And he had a cigarette hanging out his mouth. He had a towel as a cape. And he's running up and down the halls. This is the funny thing. And the RA comes up. She's watching this. She walks over to me and she goes, Kevin, do I have you to thank you? Do I have you to thank for this? I said, you might. You might. And so she's like, Phil, you need to go to bed. Okay. And he goes to bed. And she's like, Kevin, somebody putting you to bed tonight? Yeah, I think I can scrounge someone up. All right. You go back to your dorm room. I don't want to see you till morning. Okay. It was awesome.
Yeah.
That was amazing. And so, I mean, I was the most happiest in the dorm environment. Where I got to Hawaii, it was completely different. And it was hard because the level of scholarship went up.
Right.
Way up. And furthermore, I had no idea that they were so ideologically based. Not based, like based.
Not based in the internet sense, but
no,
based in ideology.
Right. It was like, people.
What ideology?
Well, here's the thing. People are coming up to me going, so what's your ideology? I'm like,
What? That's
like,
such a weird question.
Well, it's almost like what's your worldview? Christian, biblical, correspondent? Yeah. But people are, and they're like, oh, you believe in objective truth. Oh, how quaint. And you're like, excuse me? But that's all it was. Then we got into class. I remember this one class, Geography 695. There was 600 pages of reading a week, the one class. And you had to talk enough that half to 2/3 of your grade was based on class participation.
Wow.
I'm just like, a fool is thought wise if he keeps his mouth shut.
Doesn't work if they're requiring it, though.
Right. So I'd skip ahead, read a bunch of stuff, and go, okay, I think I can talk on this one thing intelligently. But one time in class, I was like, I don't understand you guys. What are you basing truth off of? If truth, and I went off.
Yeah.
And people are coming up, oh wow, I really love your passion. Nothing, just nothing. I just really loved your passion. Nothing on what I said. Not one damn thing. And that characterized my time in grad school. I did produce a thesis. To show it off later. But yeah, it was crazy. And then I came back and nobody wanted to hire me. I got hired on as a AmeriCorps member for a while. That was scary.
A what member?
AmeriCorps. So AmeriCorps is like stateside Peace Corps.
Okay, interesting.
Well, right, they're a domestic public service volunteer group that gets paid by the government.
Okay.
And what I was looking at was 5,000 of my loans getting wiped. That was nice.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do another year because it was physically dangerous for me.
Oh.
Well, it was like this. My first time showing up to that job, they were doing some grounds work at the rhododendron garden in Federal Way at the Weyerhaeuser complex. And I'm like, why is the government group doing work? Oh, it's environmental. Okay, that's why they're doing government paid work at a private corporation, which I thought was weird. But to get there, I had to go down several of these streets without sidewalks. And nobody gave a single F about whether I'd make it safe or not.
So, at that time, were you in the wheelchair?
Oh, yeah. I've been in a wheelchair, dude, since I was like 8.
Okay. So you couldn't get like the 4-wheel drive model?
Well, at the time, I had about the best I could have.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, Medicare, Medicaid does not pay for vocational equipment.
What about the Boston Dynamic
Yeah.
version that just picks you up and walks you there?
I wish. As a matter, I'll tell you what. Go up there. We'll change views here. Everyone, second. Go up to the. No.
Okay.
Back. No. So, of the tabs, general content. Go to playlist. All right, switch the views. Scene 2. All right, now go to tank chair.
Go to what?
Tank.
Oh, yes. Just play it.
Click on it so it blows up. So it expands, not that it plays.
It's hard to believe that Mint Mobile can be good at just $15 a month.
No.
As Mint's
Pause.
new owner, I brought in one of our first
No.
All
and
right.
oldest customers,
Why?
Wasim McNabe.
I didn't click anything.
All right. So,
You terrible.
can you see some of those chairs off to the side there? No,
Yes,
in the
yes,
little. In,
I can.
okay. Those are tracked wheelchairs.
I wonder if I could expand it.
Click on that. Maybe that just. There we go.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to get into this a little bit. So we're a little scattered.
Oh, heck yeah.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. Wheelchair.
I wish you could blow this image up.
Well, here's the thing, ladies and germs. This whole track chair playlist is available. Atypical Cripple. Where you found this video. So if you would like to see the state of wheelchair technology in all-terrain that exists, here you go.
Nice.
Go back to the other scene. But anyway, those are hugely expensive wheelchairs. The one I sit in is as expensive, but it's paid for by the government. And if it's paid for by the government, they kind of control what they buy.
It kind of sounds like a lot of these government issues, if they just gave you an allotment of money and said, okay, here's how much money you get, you can choose to spend it however, but your care is in your own hands.
And by that sense, most people in wheelchairs, well, a lot of people would sell them their allotment to a casino or whatever, or somebody would take advantage of them. I mean, I was talking to someone on a financial situation for me, and they were having a hard time talking to me. So I'm like, caregiver takeover. I'm done with this. And she started talking, and the person was like, oh, there's somebody else on the phone? And I'm like, yeah, we're only speaking to you because you were mishearing me. Oh, well, do they have, are you giving them power of attorney? No. Well, then they need to stay off the phone call, sir.
Oh my gosh.
Well, it's because, well, that's kind of where we're living. Because, you know, if somebody were like talking on the side, like say this, say this, say this, how do you know it's not a fraud call?
Well, okay, here's the thing I don't understand is like you're not hard to understand. So what's the excuse?
Well, right, and all phone connections are equal.
Well, sure, you could have had a bad connection, but
Well, there's all sorts of other options there too. She could have, you know, this person could have been a real pain in the ass.
yeah.
I remember when I got into some debt issues, and I had a debt collector calling, and she's like, well, just because you got a speech impediment doesn't mean I'm going to feel sorry for you. I'm like, what? I'm talking to you. I'm trying to arrange payment, and you're insulting.
She thought, oh, you know, he's putting it on to get pity. It's like,
Right,
really?
right. It's like I'm literally sitting in my wheelchair in a shopping center. What more do you want from me at this moment? I had somebody else. I went to a store, and I'm just like sitting there waiting for someone to open the door, and the guy comes up and he goes, "Hello, can I help you?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'd like to come in." And so he's, "Oh yeah, come on in. Yeah, here you go." And I'm like, just for giggles, what did you think I was doing out in front of your door? And he literally said, "I thought you were sunning yourself." I had another lady at a Christian bookstore. We later became friends. But I was coming up there with some apologetic stuff. And she's like, "Oh, sweetie, you need money for that." And I'm like, "Oh, shit, all I got is plastic." And she's like, "Oh, God, no, I'm so sorry. And she's like freaking out. I'm like, "Calm down. It was a joke."
Jeez.
Right.
Does this stuff all happen in Washington?
Yes.
Okay.
In Hawaii, there was an old man on a bus, and I was going to church with some friends. He gets up and bells out to the whole, "Why you be on bus?" You know, this old Chinese guy, and he's like, "Why you on bus?" And I'm like, "I'm going to church, uncle, because you always give an honorific of uncle to anyone older than you in the hierarchy in Hawaii." And I said, "Uncle, I go to church." You know, everyone also speaks some sort of pidgin, and like
Right.
one day my caregiver comes up and goes, "You need to go shishi?" I'm sorry, what? "You need to go shishi." What? And she's like, "Oh, do you need to go to the bathroom? Do you need to urinate?" I'm like, "Okay, can you break down your last statement? I'm not really sure how these two fit." "Oh, shishi's Japanese for peeing."
Oh.
Like I was supposed to just absorb this by, you know, it's, yeah. So anyway, I was sitting on bus. Why you be on bus? It's like, why you don't go home and let parents take care of you? What do you mean go home? Do you know where my home is? No. But you need to go there and go home right now and let parents take care of you. And it's because in Asian cultures, I'm an embarrassment. In Asian cultures, I am not worthy of care outside the home. I mean, that is Asian culture. I have people that have cared for me in the past that the way they look at it is this: anything I give you is far beyond what you should expect. So there's always a sense of, well, I'm here, it doesn't matter how I'm doing it wrong according to you, because you can't do for yourself.
I wonder if that partly, I mean, circling back to the meanings, like
Right.
where people are deriving meaning and placing meaning and value. It's like every human being is created in God's image and has value, and just because somebody has either a physical or even a mental handicap doesn't mean you can just like treat them like dirt or like less than human.
Okay, this is where it gets a little dicey, okay? So
Just now?
right. No, just now.
Okay.
Because it's like this. Tom Holland and Paul Vanderklay are two people I watch quite a bit on the internet. Tom Holland's a historian who wrote Dominion. Dominion is his take on how Christianity morally retooled the West and what it took to get to the place where you can say that. Because that is not a global perspective.
Right.
And when you look at places like China or Hawaii or other places that have been devoid of Christian ethics, Jewish ethics, then what you're looking at is a place that only recently, within the last 200 to 300 years, has had a Christian influence on it at all. And when you look at how much messiness that the European peninsulas have gone through, we are a benefit of that. And when we do war, I mean, look at how the United States does war. It does it in such a risk-averse way versus, let's say, the Russians, who, as early as World War II, albeit Christian, they would run so they'd have 4 lines of troops, and your first line and second line are your best armed, and your fourth line of troops, if you need a minefield cleared, you disarmed them and ran them through the area.
Jeez.
Right. And so when you're looking at the value of human life and what is placed on it, never assume that the person on the other side of the table views you the way you view him.
Right.
You want to flip on that light there? Other one. So I think it's very important to recognize that. And that's one of the things that has gone through me with geography is that I don't presume. I see how people act,
Right.
and then I start creating some sort of behavioral profile off that. And some people find that very dehumanizing. I, on the other hand, have to do it as a matter of cause. because my margins are so small. I mean, one or two folds in my seat cover will result in, within 12 hours, I'm in severe agony. Within a day, I have an open pressure sore. And so when your margins are running at those extremes, I get pretty animated when it's like, I need you to follow precise directions, and there's a desire to systematize it. And for me, it's one thing if somebody smashes a dish or does some sort of property damage. I can tell you right now, in myself, the more expensive that thing is, the more animated I get. Because it's going to take that much more time, effort, or waiting for that thing to be replaced.
Yeah.
And I think every one of us acts on that presupposition.
Yeah.
Except there are some people that wish to virtue signal and say otherwise. And that's where I get upset. Because they're being a far too idealistic, because they recognize how far they need to go. So they have no other option other than go, here's the ideal. Here's the ideal. If you're not meeting the ideal, I don't know what to tell you. It pisses me off to no end. It's like, can we just have a conversation over how this affects me? And then maybe you can sit there and go, well, what about this? What about that? I let people in. I really do. It's just hard because it's like they have their own egoic reasons for being here. I had this one caregiver. It was like, I'm going to come in and I'm going to revolutionize your... And it's like, I remember I have to throw up. Oh my God! She's running around screaming about something about emesis bucket. I just like, I don't know about emesis, but there's a 5-gallon bucket in the back room. Get it.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, I expected something small, like a bedpan. And it's like, not the way I throw up. I mean, one time at school, I got drunk too much. Yeah, and the caregiver comes in, he's like, wow. I don't know whether to be proud of you or mad at you.
Projectile vomit.
Oh, we measured 2 inches from the ceiling. 2 inches. I mean, on my back, in my sleep, roar! And it was like, oh gosh, I need to see a doctor.
Oh, man.
But see, that's not what people expect from the disabled. I mean, one time I almost got arrested and I got saved because I pissed myself.
I don't want to take you in my police car right now.
I just cleaned it.
Yeah.
So, not saying that's a good way of getting out of a ticket.
No, it doesn't always work, for sure, but...
But I'll tell you what, the guy that I was with had a warrant out for his arrest in another town. And he still, even though he was not supposed to be a caregiver, he was one of the best caregivers I ever had. So,
Go figure.
mm-hmm.
Well,
So I guess we kind of rambled a bit.
yeah, this is a bit of a meandering conversation, but we can continue next time.
Okay.
Yeah.
With that said, my name's Kevin.
And I am Bizarro Czar.
And this is the Typical Cripple. I'll see you on the next bounce.
Adios.
You gotta close that out.
Something has covered
Close that out.
the...
No. Go down to the bottom. See the close.
Now I do.
Mm-hmm. Bye.